Hi, this is Street Life and I'm Natasha, back at it with the recipe for turkey lasagna. For years, I only ate turkey on Thanksgiving, and then a few years ago, I tried ground turkey and found that I actually like it more than ground beef. Since then, it's my go-to option for making burgers, tacos, and most notably lasagna. I'm not a health nut, but where possible, I try to switch out ingredients for healthier options. But the choice is yours, as you can easily swap out the turkey for beef or leave out the meat altogether. So, lasagna is a layered dish. And I find it easiest to make by getting all of my ingredients together before I begin assembling them. And so with that, my first step is to cook the turkey. So here I have just some ground turkey in a pot. To that, I now add some onions, now add some garlic, and just get a spoon and stir the pot up. And so from here, you're now going to season the meat. But I opt for seasoning salt, black pepper, some fresh herbs, as well as some dried herbs. Some great options would be basil, thyme, oregano, and pretty much you just season it from here and continue allowing it to cook. At this point, this is just giving yourself an opportunity for the meat to build up some more flavor, especially because turkey is such a lean type of meat. So basically what we're doing with the meat is cooking it up because we're going to make a meat sauce using some tomato puree to make the meat sauce. If you'd like, you can certainly use jarred pasta sauce, but I use just regular canned tomato puree because it doesn't have as much sugar and all of these other additives and things like that, like the jar pasta sauce. And so from here, we're just going to continue building flavor. And to this end, I am then going to add a little bit of red pepper flakes. It adds like a nice little kick, but it's not overwhelmingly spicy. There, I taste it and see if I need to add anything. In this case, a little bit more of the herbs. The reason being that it tasted a little bit bland and didn't have quite enough flavor. So just some dried herbs that I have, and I just crush them up and add them into the pot and give that a stir, which should help it on its way to getting the flavor that I'm looking for. Adding more flavor to this, I add Parmesan cheese to the sauce. It's a little bit unexpected, but you get this vaguely familiar flavor that adds some complexity to the sauce. Up is putting everything together, assembling the lasagna. I would just suggest that you use a relatively deep dish to give yourself some room. I purchased the ready to bake lasagna noodles, the kind that you don't have to boil first. So in this case, you just take them out of the package and you begin to layer them. You don't have to cook them first as you used to, as was required in the past. Start with the layer of the pasta at the bottom of the pan, and I just use a ladle, you could use a pot spoon, just to spread the meat sauce over the noodles. And so basically what we're going to do here is to just layer this. It's just constant repetition of our ingredients. In this case, noodles, meat sauce, followed by our ricotta and our mozzarella. If you'd like, you can use other vegetables, you can use other kinds of cheese. This is just the way that I make lasagna. And so our next ingredient is the cheese, right? Completing our cycle of layers. So in this case, I just use 2 spoons to kind of, as best as I can, distribute the ricotta across the layer. Now, it's okay if you have like some gaps and things like that in between. Depending on your setup, you might be able to take like the back of the spoon and just kind of smooth out the ricotta to get a bit more coverage. But pretty much what I'm doing is just like this spoon method here. So I kind of keep my hands relatively clean. And then over that, I come back with just some shredded mozzarella and just fill in the gaps and things like that. This is why you shouldn't worry too much about there being gaps with the ricotta. Now, granted, you don't want large gaps, but smaller size gaps are fine because it'll be filled in with the mozzarella. Once that layer is nicely filled in, you just come back again with another layer of the lasagna sheets. Meat sauce again, and then, of course, another layer of cheese. And you just continue with this layering until you fill the pan, you run out of your ingredients. And so now this is like a basic lasagna recipe, but you can use it as your jumping off point for variations. One thing that you could try is, in place of the pasta noodles, especially if you're doing like a low carb diet, is to replace the pasta with like eggplant. You can add mushrooms to the meat sauce. You can try other types of cheese, but granted, I think you might want to stay with one or the other, and like maybe you could add a different kind of cheese, like a second. But you'd want to stick with cheeses that will melt nicely, right? I think like that's one of the major things about eating lasagna, that you have these really nice layers of different flavors that come together, but you should have like this rich, stretchy, cheesy goodness going on from like this melted cheese being between these layers. And we're just going to keep going and going with layering the lasagna. Once this is complete, I am going to take this and put it into the oven and bake it until like you see the cheese starts bubbling, the noodles should cook through. What I actually suggest is, lasagna is one of those foods that I think tastes better a day or two later. So like, let's say you're making this for like your Sunday dinner. I would suggest making it on Saturday or even on Friday, depending if you think you'll be able to eat all of it within a few days. But to make it a day or two ahead and allow it to cool completely, put it into the fridge, and then just let it sit for a day or two, and the flavor is just going to get even better. You can actually very easily freeze lasagna. I have in the past. Put it into a container that can go from the oven into the freezer, and you're good to go. Cover the lasagna with foil, as it'll help it to cook a bit more quickly, and it really shouldn't take much time because all of the ingredients are pretty much cooked, or they cook pretty quickly. And so here we have the finished lasagna. I actually like the corners and the ends. The middle is fine, but I like the little not quite burnt but sort of crispy bits along the edges of the pan. It's just like it has a different texture to it because the middle is nice and creamy and you get a little bit of crunch along the sides. And this is my version of lasagna. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for tuning in. To ensure you don't miss any episodes, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell, and check out my cooking at home playlist. Go ahead and click that thumbs up button if you like what you saw, and go ahead and share it on social media.